You ever stop and think about which markets are showing really vital, steady growth year after year? I mean, not the flashy tech stuff or the latest fad, but those industries just quietly expanding, often under the radar, but totally essential. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into one that might actually surprise you with its momentum, the pregnancy care product market. According to some fresh insights from cognitive market research, this isn't some tiny niche. They call it a vital and steadily growing industry worldwide. And vital really feels like the right word here. So our mission today, let's unpack how this market is evolving globally. We'll look at the money side revenues from 2021, what's expected by 2025, and forecast way out to 2033. But we're not just going to read out numbers. We want the big picture, right? What's driving it? And maybe find some of those fascinating little details that really tell the story.
Exactly. We'll guide you through it. Start with the global view, get that baseline, then we'll zoom right in. North America, Europe, the really dynamic Asia-Pacific region, South America's promising growth, and then the Middle East and Africa too. And the goal isn't just which areas are leading, but trying to get at the why these shifts. You might find some trends that challenge what you initially thought.
Okay, let's tackle that global story first then. This market is, well, it's substantial, a real economic force. Back in 2021, it was already pulling in nearly $6 billion globally, almost $5,941 million to be precise. And the path forward looks impressive. By 2025, it's expected to hit over $7.1 billion, and then looking out to 2033, the projection is over $10.3 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, that works out to a pretty robust global compound annual growth rate, the CAGR of about 4.7% every year.
And what's really illuminating there is that consistent growth over multiple years, that 4.7% made EGR globally. It's not just a number, right? It means on average, the market's growing nearly 5% each year, and that compounds over a decade. So it's definitely not a flash in the pan. It really confirms the market's fundamental stability, its importance. This steady demand, it isn't just random. It's tied into basic human needs, Think about it, growing populations globally, more focus on health awareness, changing cultural ideas about prenatal, postnatal care. It's more than stats. It's a huge ongoing investment in maternal infant well-being everywhere. That makes this market incredibly resilient.
Resilience. Yeah, that's a great word for it. Okay, from that strong global picture, let's pivot to North America. It's traditionally one of the giants in this space. In 2021, revenues were pretty hefty, almost $2.3 billion, and they're projected to grow to over $3.8 billion by 2033. That's an annual growth rate of around 4.2%. Solid? Okay, let's break down North America a bit more. The U.S., as you'd probably guess, leads by a wide margin in just pure dollar value. It was like $1.5 billion, well, $1,576 million in 2021, heading towards nearly $2.5 billion by 2033. That's a steady 3.8% growth rate annually. Then you got Canada right next door, showing slightly stronger growth, actually, around 4.7% per year. But here's where it gets pretty interesting. Mexico. It's set to have the highest regional growth rate in North America, a remarkable CGR of nearly 6%, almost doubling its market size from about $187 million in 2021 to over $370 million by 2033.
Yeah, and that does raise an important question, doesn't it? Why would Mexico, within this generally developed North American market, show growth that's significantly faster than its bigger neighbors? We could speculate on a few things driving that. First, there's probably a rapid shift in consumer habits, especially in cities. Younger families may be moving away from just traditional care and actively looking for specialized branded pregnancy products. And that often goes hand in hand with better internet access, social media influence, maybe more availability through modern shops and online. It's not just rising income, though that's part of it. It feels more like a cultural shift, an embrace of proactive wellness supported by products, and just more people actually getting access to these goods.
That's a really key point, the cultural embrace and the access. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic now. Europe, another really significant market share here, over $1.7 billion in 2021. And it's projected to grow to almost $2.9 billion by 2033. That's an expansion rate of about 4.4% annually on average. Within Europe, though, we see quite a bit of variation. The UK, for instance, shows really robust growth, like 5.37% CAGR. Germany's not far behind either, nearly 5% annual growth. But then you contrast that with countries like Italy and Spain. They're growing more moderately, both around 2.8% a year. And then there's Luxembourg, which has the slowest growth in the region covered, just over 2.5% annually.
Right. And if you connect that European data to broader demographic or economic trends, those different growth rates start to make sense. Countries with those higher KGRs, like the UK and Germany, might have different things going on demographically, maybe slightly younger populations, or perhaps more sustained immigration. And crucially, they also tend to have stronger consumer spending on, premium health and wellness items,
Mhm.
higher incomes, well-developed retail that supports all sorts of specialized pregnancy care stuff. Conversely, the more moderate growth in Italy or Spain, that could be linked to slower population growth, maybe lower birth rates, or perhaps the market is just more saturated, harder to get big new growth spurts. And Luxembourg, small, highly developed market, maybe just fewer chances for really rapid expansion. It shows how those big macro factors play out differently country by country.
That makes total sense. It's not just population size, but spending invoices too. Okay, now here's where the story gets really interesting, I think. Asia Pacific. This is genuinely the dynamic region in this whole analysis. It boasts the highest regional CAGR globally, an impressive 5.95%, almost 6%. Its market started just over $1.1 billion in 2021. It's forecast to more than double, hitting over $2.3 billion by 2033. That's quite a leap. And within that, China is definitely a dominant player. Strong growth there, 6.66% annually. But the real standout, the one showing just remarkable potential, is India. It has the fastest CAGR in the whole region, an absolutely massive 7.69% per year. And other key players too, like South Korea, also expanding significantly, about 5.7% annual growth.
Yeah, and if we connect that back to the bigger picture, that kind of explosive growth in Asia Pacific, especially in giants like India and China, it feels like a perfect storm, really. You've got rapidly growing middle classes, right? So more disposable income translates directly into more spending power for health products. Plus, there's this huge shift towards greater health awareness, driven by government pushes, loads more digital info access, and just a growing acceptance of modern product-based care over maybe more traditional ways. You can picture it, right? A young family in, say, Bangalore or Shanghai. Maybe 10 years ago, their options for specific prenatal vitamins or stretch mark creams might have been pretty limited. But today, with more income, wider availability, they're part of this massive demographic shift, actively investing in things that just weren't really accessible or even thought about before. That's the human story behind those numbers.
That's a really powerful way to put it, yeah. The human story. Okay, following that dynamic trend, let's look at South America. Also showing some really promising growth here, an annual CAGR of almost 5%. This market went from around $339 million in 2021, projected up to roughly $609 million by 2033. Now, within South America, Brazil leads in terms of overall market size. Steady growth there, 4.7% annually. But definitely keep an eye on Colombia. It's showing an impressive 6.4% CAGR. And Peru, too, solid growth at 5.9% annually. These countries are really accelerating.
It is interesting, isn't it, to look for common threads between those high growth spots in Asia Pacific and South America. You see very similar patterns, actually.
Yeah.
Rapidly developing economies, growing middle class, more people living in cities, which all means more spending power for these kinds of specialized care products. Better access to modern retail, including online shopping, plus generally younger populations. It all fuels this expansion. These regions are often going through big demographic transitions. Rising health consciousness, especially around maternal and infant health, is translating directly into market growth for pregnancy care. They're kind of leapfrogging in a way.
Leapfrogging, yeah, that's a great term for it, seeing how fast things can change. Okay, quickly, let's touch on the Middle East, also showing healthy expansion here. Annual growth around 5.35%. It's growing from about $232 million in 2021 to over $433 million projected for 2033. Within the region, Saudi Arabia looks robust, nearly 6% CAGR, 5.98%. The UAE also solid at 5.43% annually. And just for contrast, Qatar shows more modest growth, around 3.25% CAGR. And finally, let's turn to Africa, currently the smallest market we're looking at today, but still growing steadily, about a 3.8% CAGR. It expanded from roughly $172 million in 2021 to a projected $289 million by 2033. Nigeria is showing respectable growth here, 4.23% CAGR. South Africa registering about 3% annual growth.
And what these different growth rates, across these really diverse regions might signal. It's fascinating. It shows a whole spectrum of economic development, how mature the healthcare infrastructure is, even how quickly cultures adopt specific products. In places developing rapidly, like maybe Saudi Arabia or Nigeria, we're probably seeing those early stages.
Right.
The market's getting more formalized. Consumers are getting more access as economies grow and health awareness spreads. This kind of foundational growth, maybe not as explosive as parts of Asia, but it's crucial. It lays the groundwork for potentially bigger expansion later as things mature. Whereas in more established or maybe smaller markets like Qatar or South Africa, growth might be more incremental. reflects different stages of market penetration or maybe demographic stability. It's just a snapshot of how global trends hit differently on the ground, influenced by this mix of economic, social, and policy factors.
Right. So pulling it all together was the big takeaway. The main story here is definitely strong, sustained growth globally for pregnancy care products. That seems clear. Asia Pacific and South America are really leading the charge with those higher growth rates. Incredible dynamism driven by some fundamental shifts. Meanwhile, the big developed markets, North America and Europe, they remain steady, reliable contributors, often driven by, premium products and changing consumer tastes. And we've definitely seen some exceptional momentum in key emerging countries, India, China, Mexico, Colombia, where access and awareness are just rapidly expanding who buys these products.
Absolutely. It really reinforces a bright outlook for the whole industry. And for you, the listener, thinking about the implications, it's significant, right? This points to changing consumer habits, not just what people buy, but how they approach health during pregnancy. It feels like a global shift towards more proactive wellness. And that's inevitably going to spur more product innovation to meet all these diverse regional needs, organic lines, tech-enabled gadgets, you name it. And it's definitely going to heat up market competition. Companies vying for a piece of this growing global pie. It's not just about the money. It feels like it's about a fundamental worldwide shift in how societies support and nurture new life and how consumer goods play a bigger and bigger role in that.
Absolutely. It paints a much richer picture than just numbers on a page. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the global pregnancy care product market. It's really been eye-opening to see how these dynamics play out across the globe, impacting lives and economies.
Yeah, it has. And maybe one final thought, something provocative for you to mull over. Beyond all these growth rates and dollar figures, what might this ongoing growth in pregnancy care products really signify about even bigger global trends, like family planning shifts, general health awareness, or maybe the changing role of consumer products in supporting life stages in different cultures? If this market keeps going like this, what are the ripple effects on related industries, textiles, food, parenting education, maybe even how we design cities? It's definitely a rich area to keep thinking about.
That's a truly fascinating point to end on. Definitely food for thought. Keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.